Hello, everyone. John Fennell here from Great Lakes Fly Shop, and I want to welcome you back to our basic fly tying course. And today we're going to be doing something a little different. Normally in my class I do a Prince Nymph, bead headed, but with the popularity now of jig hooks, some of the designs are changing with some flies by incorporating a fly tying jig hook. Now, not to say you can't go to a regular tackle store and buy a jig hook, but they tend to be a little bit different in the fly tying world. So today, we're going to be tying the bead headed jig Prince Nymph, or bead headed Prince Nymph in a jig style, whatever you want to call it. It's an awesome fly. It's really gaining popularity up here in the Northland of Minnesota. We also use it in the Brule in Wisconsin, so it is becoming a pretty popular fly. The reason is because of the way it's tied. You can see that, you can notice that it is tied on a jig hook, and the actual white biots are inside the hook gap. So what that incorporates is a less of a tendency for the hook to snag on the bottom, and also it increases the hookup ratio, I've heard. I've used it a few times and done okay, but I find that most people that use it religiously find that it is the way to fish a dropper rig below a stonefly, or they just use it by itself in some of the streams and rivers up here in the Northland. Anyway, I'm sure it's being used in other parts of the country, so it's a pretty popular fly, the bead-headed Prince Nymph with a jig style hook. And I'm going to give you a little rundown on what is incorporated when you do a jig style hook. Okay, first of all, the hook itself is a really heavy shanked hook. I'm tying this on a size 10. I do recommend 12s and 14s. The hook itself has different degrees of bends. All right, there's a 90 degree and a 60 degree. This one is actually a 60 degree, and it's the 4640 from Daiichi, which is a really, really nice hook. I can see, there you go, it's Daiichi 4640, size 10. And it gives you an idea of the size of the bend there. You can see that in a blurry high-tech camera that I use. Anyway, it's a really, really super thick shank hook. And it's really good for fishing for steelhead because it doesn't bend so easy. All right. The other difference in all of these is what we're coming out to now is what's called slotted tungsten. In this case, that's what I'm using, in gold or copper, whatever color, in that ratio that you want to prefer. But the thing is that it's slotted, and I can't stress that enough, because when you're dealing with a jig style hook, you're better off using a slotted bead versus a regular bead. And the reason is because when you slip the bead onto the hook, it goes on a lot easier. And seeing that you got that little 90 degree or 60 degree bend right at the end, that bead falls right inside and it goes right up against the eye. So it is a real nice bead to use for jig style hooks. So it's the slotted, I'm using the slotted tungsten from Hairline. It's a great, great bead. Been using it quite a while already. The other thing, of course, what we're going to incorporate is goose biots, and in this case, we're using Prince Nymph Brown, and same like a regular Prince Nymph, only everything will be a little bit different with the jig style hook. And then, of course, we're going to be using white biots. The other thing that we'll be incorporating in this fly, I like to use this soft hackle from Whiting. It's a great product. I've been using it many years for all my soft hackles. I do use soft hackle material on my Prince Nymph. I don't like the hackle being so spiky. Some people do, but this gives it a lot of movement with the smaller soft hackle here. And as a Prince Nymph itself, it really doesn't have a lot of movement, other than silhouette, because it's got the biots. So by adding this nice webby soft hackle, you do get a lot more movement in the fly, and it really, really helps quite a bit. So anyway, it's a whiting product. You know, it's been really good for me. So, and of course, the old standby, everybody's used to this. This is Peacock Hurl, and we'll use that also in tying this fly. I do also put a little bit of lead-free wire wrap up against the bead. If you'll notice, you can see so far in that. I'm going to move the camera a little closer, but you can see that I've incorporated a little bit of wire. The reason I do that is because if you didn't, there's that large open area there that's always close to the bead when you get to finishing the fly off, and trying to wrap material into that tends to be a little bit more tedious. So what I do is I put this extra lead-free wrap up against the bead, and that not only gives it a little bit more weight, but it makes it a little more easier when you're dealing with dubbing or you're dealing with peacock curl up against the bead. And I'll go over that as we're tying the fly also. Okay, let's see, what else? I think that's it. Let's go ahead and get into this fly. If there's things I missed or things you don't quite understand, again, get a hold of me. I'm at the shop, 218-740-3040, or get a hold of me on my web at www.greatlakesflies, that's FLYS.com, and I'll be more than happy to go over some of the materials and what I do when I put this fly together, or any other fly that you see on my YouTube channel. Just give me a buzz and I can help you out, or if you got questions or something. Anyway, also want to give a big thumbs up to YouTube and the people that are following me on YouTube. I want to give you a big thank you. I can't have classes here in the shop due to COVID, so I'm doing a lot of my classes now on YouTube. So anyway, thank you guys for watching, and thank you YouTube for making it available for us to have all this video entertainment available to us. And gosh, I can't, it's really helped me out quite a bit. Anyway, okay, so here we go. The first thing we need to do, of course, is put our bead on our hook, and it slides on pretty nice, so you won't find any issues with that. And then I, of course, like I mentioned before, I put the lead-free wrap up there and I shove it up against the hook. So against the bead, I mean. So I'm going to move you a little bit closer here so you get a better idea. That way you can see a little bit better also. All right, there we go. So the first thing we need to do is we need to put the biots on the tail, and on a typical Prince Nymph, the tails are brown biots. And what I like to do is some people like to do a little ball of thread toward the back end, you know, to get this biot material to splay out some. But I found something that works a little bit better than that and actually adds a lot to the fly, and that's called ice dub. It's been being used a lot now on different flies like intruders and some streamers, and it's a great product. It's called ice dub, and it's a real crinkly material, so it does require you to use a little bit of the tacky wax. And what this does is it keeps you from making numerous wraps of thread build up that nice ball section on the end of your fly, and instead builds up a nice mound with some ice dub material to give it a little bit more glitter, you know, toward the back. So if you noticed on this, I have the back end now built up. See if you can get a little closer there. And again, I ask for your forgiveness, people, with my video cam system. I am using my phone, so I do have some limited focusing capabilities. But again, if you got any questions, get a hold of me. So what we use, in this case, we're going to be using our goose biots, all right? And I like to cut all mine off prior to the actual fly and put them in a little cup, so it makes it a lot easier when you're tying a bunch of these things. So if you notice on a biot, of course, a goose biot, it does actually have a nice little curve to it too. And I like to have it to where the curve goes on the outside. So you do mount these tail materials on the side of the hook, okay? Now I like them nice and short. I don't like a long biot sticking out on the tail. The reason is because it's supposed to still look like a decent sized bug, and I have yet to see anything that has a super long biot tail kind of configuration. So make your tails kind of short, not super long. Kind of incorporate the same size of the fly to match the length of the tails, so you have them to where you can, you can see the idea there. Not super long. All right, but still give you a little bit of length. And then I like to cover the extra material that a biot, to cover it up, to put some on the hook, to build up the little body of that hook, for that peacock herl doesn't have to work so hard. Now, in some Prince Nymphs patterns you see online, they do ask you to use tencel for the ribbing, and I like to use wire. So again, the preference is totally yours. I do use uni wire in a brassy size because this is a size 10 hook. So just your basic wire, brassy, in gold. If you're using a copper bead, you might want to use copper wire. I do know in some cases on the North Shore, copper works a little bit better than gold. I know, that's what I hear. I've always used gold. So go ahead and place your wire on there. I always place it underneath the hook shank in front of the thread and then secure it. It's always secured toward you because it is a body wrapping material. So it's secured toward you, and then it gets it ready for you to wrap it around the hook shank. Okay, peacock herl. All right, it's a great material. Use it on many flies. It's fabulous. The only thing is that it is fragile. So what I typically like to do before I even mount it on the hook is I like to get all the end of the tips pretty even. All right, so they're not all one's this way, one's that way, and when you start wrapping, you run into problems. So just make sure that they're pretty much all leveled off. And then I mount it underneath the hook shank in front of the thread and then secure it. If you make light wraps with the thread, you'll find that your product will lay on the hook shank a lot better. Just make light wraps and then put tension on it. Okay? Now I bring the thread up to the bead. All right? And when I wrap the peacock herl, I generally like to twist it. Not really hard, see, one already broke off. Not really hard, but just enough to where when you're wrapping it, it does fill in a little bit better. Make sure your first wrap is right snug up against them tails. And then gently, carefully, just make your way up toward the bead. Kind of get that wire to stay back there on that clip. Or if you have anything that holds material back there, it's a pretty good thing to use that. As you're wrapping this peacock herl, just keep twisting. Yeah, it's going to lose a little bit of its, green luster, but, I don't think it really matters a whole lot. If you run out of room like I just did now, all you do is you take your finger and just hold it and reach around and grab the other length and then wrap it again. Okay, you notice after you've wrapped it, you just bring it right up to the bead. Right up to the bead and then clip off the excess. Now I'm sorry folks if I'm going a little fast. Again, understand I work in a shop. People do come in, get phone calls. So I try to keep these videos a little bit on a faster motion. So again, if you got any questions, please get a hold of me. So if you've noticed, by using the peacock herl, you've built up a pretty good sized bulky body, which is one of the highlights of a Prince Nymph. It's super, super easy to tie once you get the feeling of the peacock curl, and it also gives you bulk really, really fast. But if you run out while you're tying, just take off more strands and then secure some in there and then just keep your wrapping. It's not going to matter a whole lot, and it'll blend in pretty good. So once you have wrapped your herl, then go ahead and wrap your thread forward. Now I try to keep a little separation in there, keeping a buggy kind of look still. And what the wire does also is it actually strengthens the peacock herl. And I wrap it all the way up to the bead. Yeah. Well, John, ain't you going to stop at the back end of the body because that's where the ribbing normally stops? No, when you're doing a Prince Nymph, wrap the wire all the way up because it gives it a little bit more glitter, you know, a little bit more pizzazz, a little more bling, I might say. Okay, so there we go so far. Got our wire mounted up there now. We got our peacock curl looking pretty decent. We got our biots in the back. The next product we're going to be doing is, again, this soft hackle. And I really like this stuff. So if you can get a hold of it, get a hold of it. You won't regret it. It's some pretty decent material, again, from Whiting. It is the Hen Cape Grizzly dyed Coachman Brown. Okay, and again, it's got, of course, the curvature to it, as we mentioned in the previous classes. So I just tear off the fuzz on the bottom. You don't need that, and then clip off the excess there. And then the curved, the outer curve always faces toward you, and the inside cup there faces toward the fly itself. I like that in my beard. You can use that as a little backdrop. So go ahead and mount that right in back of the bead. Just make sure when you get it mounted, okay, that it does have a nice layout to it to where it wraps pretty nice. Now it's going to be doing different things on you, and I'm going to show you how to take care of that when we get to working this hackle. And then what you do is you cut off the stem, get that out of the way. And you got your hackle pliers. I like to mount them right in the end there. Now when you wrap the hackle, it's going to want to go different ways and stuff, and just grab it. Just grab the barbs themselves and then straighten them out as you're actually wrapping. And they'll behave, you know. Just keep wrapping. If it wants to go different directions, I like to comb them back, you know, it exposes the stem a little bit more. If it's not wrapping right, undo it and just grab the barbs coming off and straighten them up, you know. You only need to do about 2 or 3 wraps at the most. Don't go totally crazy with wrapping hackle. You're going to look at it and go, ooh, that looks really good. If you put too much hackle in there, it kind of takes away what the Prince Nymph is all about, and that's generally the biots. And then what I do is I take my 3 fingers and I just comb them back a little bit, and then I put some wraps of thread in between the bead and the hackle. The reason I do that is because when you lay on those biots, you want a nice flat surface, roundish flat surface that you can lay the biots on, okay? And that's the critical part with this Prince Nymph, is putting on those white biots. Okay, so then what I do is I turn it over. The other beauty of this 4640 is it has a pretty good sized gap in it, so it does grab into the jaws of the vise pretty nice. So it's a really awesome hook. I sell them in 100 packs now because so many people buy them, and typically a specialty hook you can only get in 15 pack. So if you're at your favorite fly shop and you do a lot of these flies, ask for a 100 pack and they'll order them for you, or come on down to the shop. I do carry them in size 10s and 12s. Now, Putting on the white biots is no easier than it is if you're doing a regular Prince Nymph. You just lay them at an angle. You know, of course, they got to match the angle of the back tails. So you just lay them on top. I don't know if you can see that well. And then hold them down with the thumb. And then make your wrap of thread to hold it down. There's one. And then you go in here. And there's two. And you lay the other one, you know, at an opposite angle there, of course, because it is a Prince Nymph. If you need to shorten them or adjust them, now's the time to do it before you actually if you need to get them on top, just move them with your finger. Nothing is concrete, nothing is done until you put that head cement on. Okay, then what I like to do is I take the scissors, trim off that white, extra white stuff in there, white end of the biots. And then I take some pretty hard wraps with the thread because I want those biots to stay put. Typically in a Prince Nymph, you have that black band. I don't know if you could see that well. You got a black band in there anyway. Let's use my beard there. You got that black band that looks really cool. So if you got a pretty thick band out there, don't worry about it. It's typically what a Prince Nymph has anyway. Then I secure it. The whip finish. If you need to trim it up a little bit, make it look a little better, you know, you could do that also. You know, get some of those white parts of the biot out of the way. It's not going to matter a whole lot. Believe me, I think it even actually improves the fly. And there you go. There's the bottom side of the fly. And there's the top part. You know, you got your nice webby hackle. It's got a lot of good character to it. You know, I put a little bit on the curve of the down side of the bend. That gives it a little bit more of a down, nice stonefly look to it. But there it is. That is the Prince Nymph, bead headed Prince Nymph, and a jig style hook with a jig style bead. So tie a bunch of these. You'll like using them. They're a really good looking fly. You can tie them in different varieties, and also get to use this new jig style hooks. They're not new, but they're coming out pretty fast now in the fly tying world. You could do a lot of different flies with them. The 4640 Daiichi. There's the J20 from Gamakatsu, which is another jig style hook that's actually awesome. So you're going to find out that by substituting the hook to these new jig style hooks, you're going to find a pleasure not only in what the fly looks like, but also in the way the fly is used on the water. So you'll find a pretty decent improvement in these jig style hooks. The thing, again, you have to keep in mind is that do try to find these slotted beads. They do make a lot of different colors and sizes. On this one particular, since it's a size 10, I like to use a 5/32. If you're doing a 14, of course, you're going to go down to a 1/8. And anything smaller than that, you're going down to a 7/32 or a 7/64. But typically for a size 10 and 12, you might want to use a 5/32. Maybe go down to a 1/8 inch style bead, but they are slotted. I don't know if you can see that well. But anyway, the jig style bead headed Prince Nymph, really good fly. Tie a bunch of them. Guys got any questions, give me a call. Again, John Fennell here at Great Lakes Fly Shop. Give me a call, 218-740-3040. Go on my web at www.greatlakesflys.com or come on down to the shop. All right, guys, good seeing you. Take care.